Right.
And there's just something about pulling a young person and an adult out of their comfort zone. They can't go home. There's no comforts. And so then you put them in this community. In Catholic Heart Work Camp, you'll have 250 young people from all over the nation. And so now they have this similar experience, and they're working side by somebody that they don't know on Monday, but by Friday they don't want to leave because they've connected so well.
Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others, as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. To him be the glory and the power forever and ever. Amen.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Called to Serve. Today I am joined by Rita Hemmer, and she is the Youth and Young Adult Coordinator at St. Leo's. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about your background and what brought you to St. Leo's?
Yeah, sure. We actually started going to St. Leo's before we got married. My husband and I, we were married there in 1992, so we've been parishioners for that many years. Our kids grew up there, all the sacraments there, and I think it was probably like 2004. I had been a catechist and really got more involved in my faith and St. Leo's when my kids were small. That kind of happens to parents when their kids start going through the sacraments. And so I volunteered as an aide first and then as a catechist, and I did that from when they were elementary all through their elementary years. And then one year I just didn't sign up and they didn't ask me, and I was like, yes, I don't have to do anything this year. And then Jody Stauffer says, hey, we need somebody for high school, and can you help out? And I don't know what it was. I don't even know why I said it, but I was like, oh yeah, I'll do it. You know, I had no idea, and I just walked away from that conversation thinking, what did you just do? You know nothing about high school. Oh, they're going to eat you alive, spit you out. And so I started helping out, being a leader for Empower Youth, and was not very good at it at first, and so a little intimidated by high schoolers. And pretty soon I started to see, like, I think we could do something a little different. So I asked the coordinator at that time, hey, can I start planning some of the sessions? And she's like, yeah, you can do it. And so we did a little more interactive type stuff and got a little better at it. And in that time, I started to feel this restlessness. And you talk about being called to serve and not wanting to be called to serve. And I had a great job. I was making a lot of money. It was a very successful career at what I was doing before. And just feeling unsatisfied. Couldn't figure it out. It was very frustrating. And just little things happened here and there. And this continuing with this high school Empower Youth ministry. And the coordinator at the time was going to take another job, and it opened up, and I just felt this urging of, I think I got to take this job, which my family was not very excited about because we were making pretty good money, more money than I ever thought I'd make in all my life.
Yeah.
And so, and knew that my career was going up and up and up, and it wasn't appeasing. I remember I asked my grandma, who's my faith role mentor, I was like, how do you know when God's talking to you? And without missing a beat, she says, oh, you just feel it in your gut. And I'm like, okay, wait, what? She goes, you just know there's a piece to it. And so I volunteered for Higher Ground. That was amazing. Definitely suggest that for any high school student. And I knew this is what I needed to do. And my husband was like, whatever is going to make you happy. And I knew when I applied I was going to get the job. I just had this confidence. It's kind of weird, not a cocky confidence. And there were other people that applied, and I just knew I would get it. And so I was offered the job, and here we are. Father Jack at the time, he's a great boss. He said, can you give me 10 years? I was like, I can give you 10 years. And almost 21 years later, here we are.
So yeah, you started in, do you know what year you started?
2005.
Okay.
Yep, July 2005.
So yeah, I think that last part of what you said got into what I was going to ask you next, and that was just kind of like if you felt a moment that you were called to do that. So I think you could probably definitively say
yeah. There were a lot of little moments. I remember actually being our office was in the basement of our house, and just mulling it over and just coming to tears. And I was just like, God, what do you want me to do? And you just, it's not a voice in your head, it's a voice in your soul. And you just hear God saying, you know what I want you to do.
Yeah.
So,
do you want to talk a little bit about the programs that are offered at St. Leo's?
Yeah, sure. So I am the director of youth and young adult ministry for middle school, high school, and young adults. Also included in that is working with families as much as you can. And so along with those duties, there's a lot of little things that we do. So safe environment coordinator, making sure that all of our volunteers are safe people and good people for our young people.
Okay.
We have events, Advent night, Lenten night,
Yep.
And then all the little things that aren't in your contract that just go along with making sure that the church runs smoothly as it can.
Mm-hmm. I know, you have Mad Camp.
Yep, and so middle school, there's a Make a Difference camp, and that happens. It's a 3-day service retreat. It started before I was there, and it's intended for middle schoolers to give them confidence, service, and to encourage them to go on the youth trip. Then in high school, we do a summer mission trip. We did Young Neighbors in Action for years, and they did not make it through COVID, so now we do Catholic Heart Work Camp. And going on that, making sure we have adults, doing the fundraising for that, and so that entails a lot of work, a lot of time. And so,
do you want to share a little bit about the mission trip that you do?
Yeah, sure. They started doing Young Neighbors in Action before I was there, and the argument is there's a lot of things in Grand Island. You don't need to go on a mission trip. You should just stay in Grand Island. And you hear that argument. You hear other parishes with that argument.
Right.
And there's just something about pulling a young person and an adult out of their comfort zone. They can't go home. There's no comforts. And so then you put them in this community. In Catholic Heart Work Camp, you'll have 250 young people from all over the nation. And so now they have this similar experience, and they're working side by side by somebody that they don't know on Monday, but by Friday they don't want to leave because they've connected so well.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you take a young person out of their comfort zone, and it's a retreat setting, and there's great prayer services, adoration, mass every day, and so we're giving them. I really believe it's a little bit of heaven on earth, and that's why at the end of the week they're ready for more. Now Monday or Tuesday, it's the transformations are great. I've had kids say, "How much is it a plane ticket so I can go home?" On Monday, and it's like, that's not an option. I'm so sorry, you have to stay. And then been the first one. That person was actually the first one to sign up for the next year.
Wow. Yeah.
And so, praise God that we have these organizations that work and put these on. They see the value of that in service. And so
I know I can speak to that. I remember my mission trips from high school, and I think one of the most memorable ones was going to Denver. And like you talked about getting outside of your comfort zone, we went and witnessed to some homeless people. And I remember thinking, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
This is scary. And then when you walk away from that experience, and you just feel like a big transformation in the way you think about things. And so, those programs are super important.
Right, yeah. And we say that a lot. It's like we're going to help people, and knowing that at the end of the week, they're going to know that they were, our participants are the ones that, received a lot, maybe more than they gave.
Yep. Taking this job and then, stepping outside of your own comfort zone probably, has there been any big surprises, something that you didn't expect that you've gotten out of this, or that you've been able to give in your role?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the little moments. I was reflecting on the drive here a little bit about that. It's definitely a lot of frustrations. You're dealing with middle school, you're dealing with high schools, and sometimes your participants are reluctant. But I think the little moments where you see that a kid got it, you see just the light, and then when I'm presenting And you get this great eye contact. It's kind of like when you're on the basketball court and everybody's cheering for you. You just feel motivated, and it empowers you. And so when you see what you're presenting to young people, and they're buying into it, and they want more of it, and they're yearning, and you just start feeling like, oh my gosh, they're getting this and whatnot. Or when we do an activity and it goes well, and you know that a kid felt something, felt something, but maybe some soul food that we help them or empower them, and you see that relationship build. And there's sometimes it's like, I can't believe that went so well. Mm-hmm. And I joke about that, but I know God's up there going, wait a minute, you prayed for this beforehand, and now you're surprised? What did you expect? I know God is false, puts his face in his hands sometimes for me, because sometimes I doubt and I distrust, and then things just go really well. So as far as like, it's just the little things here and there, and watching young people, we know it's a huge responsibility, because like you said, you remember going to Denver, you remember your youth leaders, and so we're building core memories. They're going to remember us forever. And I tell our leaders, they're not going to remember everything. Maybe part of it is teaching, but they're going to remember you, and you represent God, and you represent the church, and what an honor that is, but what a great responsibility that is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think seeing a young adult who maybe I had 20 years ago, and just smile and say, hey, how you doing? And give them a hug. And that happens quite often. And just to see the rebuild of the relationship, that they're still a relationship, and maybe you made an impact in their life somehow.
Yeah. So for somebody that's been doing this for a long time, you probably get a little bit of a unique perspective on it compared to somebody that has just started. Do you have any particular challenges, or what challenges do you think young people face today where they didn't maybe 20 years ago?
Yeah, huge. I really enjoy reading the research on, generation, alpha coming, the research every years, what are young people like? What are they experiencing? How do you empower them, foster their relationship with God and with each other? And there's so much of the research is just saying it's just changing so much. Mm-hmm. Not so much in smaller amounts of time. So like you might, like youth ministry, the first 10 years, we really could approach, and we were effective in this certain way that we approached it. Right. And then it started to change, like, well, we got to change the way we do it. And then maybe in the next 2 years, like, we got to change. And then it's just like every year, it's just kind of a different thing. And, everybody's like technology and whatnot that going on. And so, yeah, there has been a lot of changes. So I think about 4 years ago, we just totally revamped our approach. Confirmation prep, which is my favorite program to do. My favorite group to do is middle school. I just love hanging out and being part of middle school's life. But my favorite program is confirmation, because we do it in the junior year. And they're really questioning and they're doubting, and I love that. And you have to really do your homework to try to explain or, let them know this is the faith. Yeah. But we had to change it, because the way young people absorb information has really changed. So I think it was like 2018, maybe 2017. St. Mary's Press did this large-scale research, not a survey, a research. So they had several thousand young adults who are disaffiliated with Catholic faith. They were used to be Catholic, but they're not. Okay. And so I gave them a couple of emails of young, they don't practice their faith anymore. It's like, hey, they're doing a survey, be part of it. So I don't know if they were part of that or not. And then what they did is they contacted several hundred of them, and they did interviews, one-on-one interviews with them. It's like, why don't you practice anymore? And out of that, a book, Going, Gone, disaffiliated young adult Catholics, it kind of gave the results of that. And so much of it, so it was kind of scary. And I think every Catholic youth minister should read it, because it said a medium age of when they decided, well, I'm not going to be Catholic anymore, was 13. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So 11 to 23, that was kind of the age group that they were decided, but the medium age was, most of it was 13. And a lot of the responses were, there was no ownership of the faith, no relationship building of Jesus. And a lot of the complaints were, they just told me what to believe, and they didn't ask me what I believed. Right. And so out of that, a book by Bob McCarty, he was used to be the director of a large-scale youth ministry. He wrote a great book, and I have like 3 or 4 copies, and I let people borrow it. It's called Faith Talk. And so how do you build the relationships? How do you give them a voice? And there's a term that is used, I love it. It's experience rich, language poor. And so a lot of our people, they've experienced God, and they've experienced our Catholic faith, but they can't name it. We've not done a very good job putting the language of them. So now there's some techniques. We changed the way we do confirmation. The first part of confirmation is all relationship building, and how do you put a name to your experience?
Right.
And so just all these different techniques of how do you do that. One of my favorites, we do a meet and treat. I call it a meet and treat.
Okay.
And so one of the few first confirmation preps, we have small groups, and you go to wherever you're going to have a treat. Dairy Queen, Big Red Treats is very popular. And we just have these, metaphors and simile questions, like, is God like a pillow or is he like a rock? And so what we've given them, we're starting to give them the language. And so like we do an adoration, beautiful adoration and prayer service with their parents, and afterwards they journal, and it's like, what did you journal? It's peaceful, it's calm, it was just really great. And it was like, that's God, that's God, that's God. So helping them recognize that. So we start with our middle school too. We're not telling you, it's not a class. I hate that word. I corrected a confirmation kid the night. She said, well, I need to make up class. I was like, I don't have class. We have sessions. Fine. Sessions. And so I was like, it's like good therapy. And so, because you think about the mentality, they're not students. In fact, I just had a voicemail from somebody. It's like, hey, we want to know if we can come speak at your class for your students. I was like, no, you can come to our Empower Youth group, and you can talk to our young people.
Yeah.
And so trying to give them the experience of God. And then once they've like, yeah, I think there's something to this. Then it's like, oh, let me tell you what the Catholic faith teaches. Look, you know why we have sacraments? Oh my gosh, this is why we have sacraments. You know Jesus wants us to do this? And then you see that transformation with our confirmation candidates. They've made the turn, and they're starting to buy into it.
Yeah.
And so then when you start to talk about the hot topics, and so last night we talked about morality. Like, where does morality come from? Where's our Catholic? How do we even decide that?
Right.
So we built that relationship. We've given them a voice, and now they're like, they were tuned in. I mean, my leaders were like, they were tuned in. And so when you talk about the hard topics coming up, they have this foundation that we've already built.
Yeah. Do you think it's harder, like just with all of the technology and stuff, for, I don't know if it's attention spans or just like keeping them engaged has changed at all, or?
Yeah, I think young people give it a bad rap with technology, because I think adults are just as bad as young people. And if you see a mom on their phone all the time, why wouldn't a kid be on their phone all the time? Yeah. And I think our young people are recognizing the effort to tell them, hey, this is not as healthy for you.
Yeah.
It's, I think they're really getting that vibe. And I think there's a pendulum swing kind of away from technology, in my opinion anyway. I think if we let them, give them permission, yeah, I think they'll have their phone, yeah. And so our confirmation candidates, I don't care, bring your phone, you're young adults. And they put it on their table, and not once I've seen them like grab it and do something underneath.
Oh, that's good. Yep.
And our young adults, they put it on their our middle schools, they put it on the prayer table, and you can almost see it's done, it's out. Our 9th and 10th graders are they're on a different wavelength. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but they're supposed to put it in the little pocket. I don't know. There is definitely a different vibe in today's young people. I definitely see it in our middle schools. It's just different. I've heard from teachers too, and if you read the articles about public schools or what, there's just a different vibe. And some of that they're kind of blaming on the COVID, where they didn't have any organization or routine for a while. So I don't know. We'll find out in years from now on that. The same thing about when they recognize what their technology is doing to them, it's a lot different, because during our mission trip, they sign a contract and it says, you'll get your phone in the morning. No, you'll surrender your phone. You took our phones. I never take your phone. You surrendered it. You signed the contract. In the morning, they get it, and then it's surrendered to us. And in the afternoon, and then in the evening, we had, it is, your mind is, the dopamine and whatnot is addicted to it. First couple days are tough for them, and they recognize that. And then like the third day, they'll be like, I don't need to keep it.
Huh.
And so, maybe, I don't know, if I might say, I think what technology has done to our young people that is very hurtful is the availability of pornography. And you read the research of youth on youth sexual violence or sexual assault has really increased a lot, and they really are attributing that to pornography too. And it's so first the age was like 13, that their view, and then it went to 11, and now we're looking at 8 and 9-year-olds. And so I just, we just have to keep telling our parents, I was like, your kid doesn't need a phone. Your kid doesn't need a phone. Give them a flip phone, and just really, I really do encourage parents to get the technology, the apps that you can see what your kid is on the phone, because you wouldn't let them go to some stranger's house, and that's basically what you're doing when you put that in their phone. So I think that's where the hurtful things of technology has hurt our young people.
Okay. Aside from the technology aspect, is there any one thing that you're seeing that is a big challenge for the young adults?
For the young adults?
Yeah, or the youth.
Or the youth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, young adults, it's a simple search. If you haven't heard, there's a resurgence and a renewal in faith in young adults. And 10 years ago, maybe not even like 5 or 6, 7 years ago, you just didn't see that, and almost kind of a very reluctant. I don't want anything to do with my faith. I don't want to do with the church or whatnot. And now there's more of a curiosity, I think, and who knows what that's all. I'm sure that social media is helping with that, because we have Father Mike Schmitz, and he's just been great relational, and Bishop Barron, and then just a whole slew of Sister Marian, a whole slew of people, young people that are using technology, I think, to really help young adults. And so that pendulum is swinging back. And I don't know if it's just me, but I just think young adults have figured out that there's the God-sized hole in your heart, and nothing else is filling it. And then when you do practice your faith, when you do go to adoration, when you are around the young adults, a Bible study, how that is fulfilling your soul.
Right.
And I think they're recognizing that. And so the other thing, and Jenny Golkin, a coworker, and I had talked about, is professional athletes being adamant and not ashamed of their faith and talking about their faith in public. So when you're like, how was the game? And the first thing they say is, I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. You're like, oh, got that in there, didn't you? And so now I think media is picking up, because I think media is seeing, hey, our audience is really replying to that. And then when you see college athletes to do the Heisman Trophy winner.
I've definitely noticed like a big surge in seeing that. And then I've always said, man, that's really cool. So,
yeah. It's filtering down to our high school, because Jenny was saying at the state wrestling meet, so many kids had on the, getting warmed up, religious and faith themes on their T-shirts, and one kid doing the sign of the cross after he won the state championship, and so I think it's filtering down. I think the pendulum is swinging back, and we're having that resurgence. And there's other pop culture's issues because of that. And I think we need to take advantage of that. And so the changes are how don't let that stagnate. So our churches and our young adult ministers, which unfortunately a lot of Catholic churches don't have young adult ministers, and young adults are taking that on. We need to take advantage of that, and I know have been doing an adoration and a social in Grand Island, and just getting that word out on that, and helping people bring them back.
Absolutely. What would you say to a young person that is struggling with their faith and is kind of at that crossroads of trying to figure it out for themselves? Yeah,
good question. So with my job, you really have to pay attention developmentally where they're at. Is it a middle schooler? So when you ask that, it's like, okay, a middle schooler, a high schooler, a young, there's definitely how you approach that depending on where they're at too. So one of the things of the Going, Gone kind of came out of that survey is meeting people where they're at, and letting them doubt. Is like, and then saying, so there's a difference, Micah, because you have that situation, and maybe you have a kid that's seeking, or a young person that's sinking.
Right.
they're seeking. It's like, okay, I don't know what's going on. I'm seeking this. And so then they're open to it. And then you have the reluctant. Like, I don't want to be here, and whatnot. And so there's a different approach with that too.
Right.
And so you meet them where they're at, and you let them down. It's like, well, I don't believe in God because of this, people die. Suffering is like, yeah, that's a good reason. And then sometimes when you say that, they're like, yeah. She's like, what is she doing? She's supposed to like convince me, and so you just meet them where they're at, and maybe give them something to think about. But it's like ranching. If one cow comes in, you don't give them the whole hay bale, and so you don't want to overload somebody
Right.
if they're not ready for it, and
Right.
just so. It's just relationship building. You build that trust up,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, okay, this person is like, they really seem sincere and they care about me.
Yeah.
And on our young people, I tell you, that's a big part of it. Is they got to know we care about them.
Yeah.
So asking my confirmation candidates, it's like highs and lows last night. That's how we started, highs and lows. So they went around, whatever. One kid said, parent-teacher conferences. I go, high or low? And he goes, and so then I asked him, it's like, why did I ask this? Because they got to know, and they're like, and then there's different answers,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like, well, you just want to know, or you know where we're at, or whatever. And finally says, because you care. Yeah, we care about you. We want to know. And so if a kid knows, if a young person knows that you care about them, that's your opening. And what's our model? Jesus.
Yep.
What did he do first? I'm going to heal you.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm going to forgive your sins. So building up that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Our model is always Jesus.
Yep.
And so we make it harder than it is.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. We make it
and the
all,
older we get, the more
yeah,
we try to complicate it.
Yeah. And even Catholic youth ministry in our nation is figuring that out. And so there's a new document that came out last year, 2 years ago. It's called Listen, Teach, Send.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's based on the road to Emmaus.
Mm-hmm.
So what did Jesus do? He listened to them. They're like, oh my gosh, did you not know? Jesus, like, oh, they did him. And then what's he do? He breaks open the word. He teaches like, hey, but what about this, this, and this? And then they recognize him breaking the bread, and where do they go? They're off. They're like, oh, we got to go tell everybody else. That if we just got to follow the model.
Yep.
Sometimes we bounce back and forth because the kid's like, hey, I'm in for it, and then I'm like, I haven't seen you for 3 months. What's going on?
Right,
So,
right.
and another thing, like one time, it was a young adult, and she said, I remember confirmation, and I missed a lot of club volleyball and whatever, and you were always just so forgiving. You never got mad at me. I think one thing that people don't realize, I think we just kind of take it for granted, but our young people are under so much pressure, and I think that's one thing that's changed over the years. Okay, you got a coach yelling at me. I went to a basketball game the other night, and the coach is yelling this kid's name across the court. I'm like, oh, dude, if that's the way to do it, I don't know, but I don't know how effective that is. So they're under a lot of pressure, extracurricular activities. And then, parents are doing their job, but it does pressure a kid.
Yeah.
So the last thing we want to do is, hey, why were you late for confirmation? Or where you been? You got to make
Right.
this up. And so, again, Jesus, forgiving and trying to accept them where they're at.
Yep. I will share this with you, and then you can see if this sparks something in your mind that you would like to comment. Or in my life, I often think back. I'm like, when did Jesus seem absolutely real to me? And I think back to being raised. So you talked about this. You touched on it. That parents are teaching their kids this, and then they just have this in their head that yes, this is what I've been told. And then you get to a point where you're like, do I actually believe this, or is it just a belief because I was told to believe it? And so I think back to that time in my life, and it was probably in high school, and I made youth group and Wednesday nights at church like a big part of my life, but like being with other people that I could relate to, and then I started thinking about this, and I got involved in the praise band at church. And I loved the guitar, and that was just another reason for me to go. And then I start thinking, I'm like, something's happening to me that I'm not really sure how to explain. And it just felt, I was absolutely, after those 4 years, on fire for God. And I know it's because of hearing God's word there, and then the youth directors. And so my point is that what you do is ultra important, like, because it is that crossroads in a lot of people's lives. And I know you talked about that. That's a little different age range depending on who you are. But I will always think back to that time and say that is when I really turned the corner and accepted Jesus, like personally. Like I always feel like, I don't know, everybody's different, but I feel like everybody probably has a God moment in their life where they can look back and think of that's when they knew and felt God alive in them.
Yeah. Interesting enough. So I have a young adult that helps us with a lot of different things. And Catholic school, she went to Catholic school, actually had a Catholic college. And I asked her, because this conversation come up, it's like, when did you, just really have that relationship with Jesus, when you really felt it? And she goes, it's actually probably in my later college, like my master's program. I was like, really? I was like surprised, because she just is so faithful, just loves Christ. And she goes, yeah, in going through the motions, it's, you feel like it's your parents' faith, it's the right thing to do, it's part of my identity, because, and it wasn't till, a situation where I felt like, that Jesus is here, right here, in the point of surrender, I guess. I think we get caught up a lot about like the teaching part of it, and not the listening, and not the sending, and we make it harder again. Like, we got to make sure they know this, this, and this, and I think there is a time where we forget to say, "Are you willing to say yes to Jesus?"
Yeah.
And I know that we get scared because it sounds so Protestant. Is like, do you have Jesus in your heart? Are you, and that's not a bad question. It actually should be a very Catholic question. Yeah. Have you said yes to Christ? And my grandma, non-denominational and very much about, this is the day that I knew, and I have a different, I guess, opinion about that, because I think there's several moments where we just say yes to Christ, that surrender.
Yeah.
Because I think we say yes to Christ and we're all in, and then we become stagnant, or something happens and there's those doubts. And if Mother Teresa has doubts that God really existed, I bet it's okay if we have those doubts, and then they're knowing that God meets us at those doubts and whatnot. But that's why we talk about charisma. We have a 3 session with our middle school. We do these fun activities, they're crazy, but it's about part of the charisma.
Okay.
And then the end is like, let's do adoration, and let's have a mass God. But knowing that just asking God and saying yes to God, that it's every day it's a yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when Jesus went to the desert. I said this the other day to some of a group that we did. We think Jesus 40 days in the desert, Jesus 40 days in the desert, but we don't think about each and every day.
Right.
Each and every day was tough.
Yeah.
And so when you do Lent one day at a time. And so when you're saying yes to Jesus, isn't it an everyday surrender?
Right.
And then sometimes we don't.
Yep.
We're like, no, not today, God. I am going to be mad at this person, and I'm justified or whatnot. And so, yes, and I do think that I have faulted on the not asking people, don't you want Jesus in your life? And I've had young adults call me on it, that they've went through college, maybe they're big in the Newman Center, and they've come back and felt, thank goodness, that it was important enough to say, hey, Rita, I think you really need to nail down on our Catholic faith and this, and this. And it's just great advice. It's very humbling. And to take that advice and say, I think this would have really helped me at this time. And so, but you're right, everybody is at different stages. But you cannot say, well, a middle schooler, because they're not as developed as a high schooler, can't say that. Yeah. Because they can. Yeah. And I've seen it. And Micah, I think the big difference is parents.
Yeah.
I would say more the young adults that have really stuck to their faith, even through, some troubled times or whatnot. I think their parents had a relationship with God. And if your parents have a relationship with God, more times than not, that will stick with the kid.
Yeah, well, I have fond memories of being a young kid, and my dad would read Bible stories to me at night, and I still remember that. And so obviously that was influential for me. And then my grandparents, the same thing. Like my grandparents played a big role in my faith.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Yeah.
I think that's all the questions I have. And is there anything?
Praise
I mean,
God.
maybe for parents or young people that
Yeah.
you want to share to finish?
To finish off, yeah. I don't know. You just never underestimate the words, the actions that you do for others. That's one thing I always tell our young people, and you can say it to parents too. Don't underestimate your power to make a difference in this world.
Yeah.
You know, you are making a difference, and you have to decide: is this a difference that's it's toward holiness? And we always think, oh, I can't be holy. He's like, no, actually, God made you. You can be holy. You know, God, you were. And so, you know, even as parents, as young people, don't underestimate the power that you have to make or break somebody's day. And so, why wouldn't you just make somebody's day? Because that's how God made you.
Yep. Well, very good. Well, thank you
All
for
right.
being here. We want to thank our visitors for watching, and next time you see Rita, be sure to thank her for all that she does and helping the young adults and youth and growing in their faith.
Yeah, thank Jesus.
Amen.
Jesus, yeah, thank Jesus.
God's blessings.